Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Lahana. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited.
Yes. Go ahead and introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
Yeah, my name is AJ Neste. I'm a professional photographer, but in recent years, I've become a complete hunter.
I love it. That's what's so unique because I'm usually like interviewing like functional medicine doctors and stuff. But when you told me when we met at I think he's my brother-in-law. I don't know. I'm the sister-in-law. He's my brother-in-law. I have no idea. When we met at the wedding, I thought that was really interesting what you do and your approach to it, which I know we'll get into. So kind of tell us how you got into actually doing the hunting.
I guess it's something that I did as a kid.
Okay.
I was very, very young with my dad. He was a big duck hunter out in Long Island in New York, where I'm originally from. And you just tag along with your dad, and you do whatever he does, and that's what I love doing. But then I lost it, and I've kind of realized a lot of people that I know hunted or fished when they were younger, and then life takes over.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me. I just completely forgot that side of my life until much later on. And yeah, I was in my mid-20s,
Okay.
uh, and uh, the truth behind it was one day I was driving from a photo shoot and by myself and just enjoying the drive in California where I was living at the time, and I actually heard a question in my head. It said, "Where does your food come from?" And it was kind of random, and I was like, okay, well, that was kind of a weird question to randomly ask myself. And my answer was, I don't know. And I said that out loud. And the answer scared me because the more I thought about it, by the time I got home after my 3-hour drive, I was talking to my wife. And I'm like, I just felt like I had this overwhelming question in my head. Where's my food come from? And I don't know. And when I thought about food at that point, I thought specifically about meat because I was a full carnivore. Every meal was meat, meat, meat. So as I dove into it and researched, I mean, all you got to do these days is type one thing into Google about
Yeah.
factory farming, and you'll be scared for weeks.
Yeah.
So that initial shock, of course, happened to me. But I think a lot of things sometimes are set up for shock. And I was like, okay, well, that's obviously an extreme side of it. And I just started researching more and doing more research on it every day. And everything I found was kind of things that I was against. And I don't exactly like using the term factory farming because I know a lot of farmers, and I know a lot of guys that do it right. But it's like this factory mass production of food that is more generated towards numbers and money. And the numbers started shocking me that there's, 70 to 80 billion animals a year produced for food. And to keep them alive and well, there's about 80% to 90% of antibiotics that we produce are for these animals. So that made me question, why do they need so much antibiotics and drugs to keep these things alive? And I started researching their living conditions and didn't like that. So what it forced me to do was, hi, baby.
Yeah. She always comes on.
Yeah, that's great. But what forced me to do was kind of think about me personally and my choice. And what I chose to do at that time was go vegetarian.
Okay.
And my wife, Megan, she went vegetarian as well. And it was just kind of felt like the right thing to do because we didn't want to take part in it all. Because we didn't have a local farm we were going to, and we didn't have, we didn't have enough money to go get all the organic stuff at that time. So we were just getting any run of the mill chicken or steak you could find on sale, kind of gray on the bottom, right on the top. But, going vegetarian wasn't easy. I lasted I think it was about 8 months, and I started feeling like I was tweaking a little bit. I just couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
And my wife is feeling the same thing. The craving for meat was just overwhelming for us. I know people that can do it, and all praise to them, but I just couldn't. And it was at that point when I was at this, had this decision to make. How do I continue? Do I dive right back into buying store-bought meat?
Right.
After learning everything that I learned, And it was so much that I learned that I was just like, you know what, I need to just do it myself. And not having access to a farm,
Yeah.
not having the land to do it, being in Southern California at the time, I was like, you know, the only way that I can truly do it myself is if I got my hunting license.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
That's awesome. Like you said, I think a lot of people are detached from like where food comes from. So like any chicken, any steak, it's just kind of chicken and steak. They don't really think about the animals that it's coming from. And so I feel like that's a big issue, is that there's probably the majority of people are detached, and they're not understanding. That's why I feel like when you know a little too much, that's when you have to start like, oh, I can't eat this, or I can't live like this. So I totally understand. And that craving for meat definitely is, I hate saying this, but it's healthy. And I hate seeing documentaries that take the worst meat possible, and that's what they do studies on, and show all these. Of course, the factory farming mass production is where a lot of the issue is. I know that there's a new documentary that's going to be coming out that's talking about exactly like the quality of how that's important. I forgot what it's called. I forgot what it's called, but it's going to be really good. It's going to be hitting on all those notes that I feel like are very essential to telling people and teaching people about good meat.
Yeah. Yeah,
But like you said, the best way to get it is get it yourself. So tell us the process of how you successfully like hunt and feed your family.
yeah. So I mean, humble beginnings. um, I had to learn how to hunt, and I was not good. You know, but in California especially, there's lots of laws. So, you know,
Oh, I bet.
abiding by all of those and figuring out ways to, you know, go hunting with, you know, firearms and everything. And so that was a whole nother loop to jump through. But once I started doing it, even when I was unsuccessful, I started feeling success. It was very strange. Like I'd come home after camping and wouldn't have anything. Maybe I'd have one overly shot pheasant, you know, you know, I just felt bad for, you know, but, you know, just, you know, I'd come home and we would make a full meal around that one piece of meat, you know, and it was
Cool.
fun. It was like, you know, the meat was like, you know, something that we didn't have. So any of it was just like, wow, this is exciting. And I would cook it horribly. But my wife, God bless her, she had a lot of patience with me in the beginning, you know. But then as our life started transitioning after those first couple of years, I moved back to Florida where my family lives now. And when I came back here where I am now in Florida, I went through like my high school years here and into college, and I never knew how much land there is here to have access to and get outdoors and to forage and to learn. And like, I mean, you step out off the road 100 yards and you're surrounded by all different types of like owls and snakes and just, I mean, there's alligators everywhere. It's so cool. It's so much fun. And then there's lots of game and deer and hogs and turkey. It's just, you know, so for our transition into this phase of life, you know, coming back here to Florida, it was just like fun. And then a lot of my friends were excited I was back, and they were like, hey, what are you doing? You know, one of my best friends, Matt Katsolis, you know, he's a cinematographer. He's like, what are you up to? I'm like, oh, I'm going out in the woods. I'm going to go look for a hog. He's like, what? He's like, can I come? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then my other buddy, Chris Herrera, he'd be like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, going hunting. He's like, you hunt? I'm like, I'm trying to. So I just had all these buddies that were just, you know, none of us were hunters, but
Right.
we're friends. And we started going out, and then I started learning from guys that have been hunting all their life. And that's what we all did, is we started learning. And I fell in love with everything that surrounds hunting. You know, a lot of people get excited about going out and shooting something. Although that was, you know, I was hoping to get something to feed my family. I just was falling in love with everything else about it. And like a couple of things that I learned about us as humans is like, we're horizon seekers. And a lot of our lives are focused in on laptops, like we're talking to each other,
Right.
iPhones. And when you get out in nature and you're sitting there for hours, you start looking way out in the horizon. It just feels natural. And, you know, that's what we're meant to do, is analyze and look. And you'll see something through the trees and you're like, what's that moving? And it'll be like a squirrel tail flicking, or even a butterfly landing, or like in the morning when the light's shining and it's a freshly like spun like spider web. You know, you see that glare, and it's like all these things you pick up on. And then you get out of nature and you go into like, you know, around other humans, and everything seems louder and like,
Yeah.
you pick up on everything. And so there's all these cool benefits from it, and just this connection with that natural element that's in us. And also like, I started falling more in love with God, with my faith, with like my friendships. And there's just so much goodness that came from it, that I had an issue when people will be anti-hunting. They're like, man, you just have no idea how good it is and how much we need to get out in nature.
Yes.
So then I would take people out of it. Look, we're not going to shoot anything, but let's just come out with me. And they just,
Right.
and then all of a sudden they'd be like, hey, can I shoot something? Yeah, so I mean, there's that whole aspect of it that just feeds me, and has just motivated me to stay outdoors, to motivate others to get outdoors, and to share it through photography. And like my friend Matt, like the cinematography, and now we've kind of grown to have this tight knit team that we just support each other. It's been incredible.
That's cool. So is every time you go out, do you get something now, like now that you're kind of experienced in it? No.
We have a saying. It's just like, that's hunting. You know, we go out and four-wheelers break, we got trucks break, we go through mud, we get stuck, we got to call people with tractors to pull us out. You know, and it's always an adventure. And I think that, you know, it's what we love. What we're made to do is be outdoors in that. But you know, there is the rare occasion that I am successful, and you know, that just motivates you for another, you know, 10 visits outdoors when you don't get anything. And so for me, like when I do get blessed with a hog or a deer, you know, it's a full respect thing, because when it walks out, I'll analyze it, and because I know it's going to be going to my family's plate and to the dinner table. So if it walks out, I'll look at it, and if it's for me, I do nothing for trophy. So I don't care about the antler size or anything like that. It's more about the quality and the health of the animal. So I'll analyze that, and then if it fits, you know, the criteria of a good meal for my family and friends and community, you know, I'll take it. And then my favorite method is bow hunting. And after that, after being successful, it's just full respect for the animal, to immediately break it down, to butcher it, and to get it right into ice or in a cooler. And then I start the process of getting it ready to be seen by my wife, basically.
Right. And how do you tell an animal if it's healthy?
It's pretty easy to tell for me, because I'll look at its hindquarters, and it's almost, someone could like visualize, you know, an animal that's its hindquarters are kind of sunken in around its spine or its bones. And you can kind of tell that, you know, that's not something that you would want to bring home. You know, if you see something that has a very shiny coat, the meat on it looks good, you know, it looks healthy. And also the areas of where you're hunting depict a lot of that as far as what they're eating. So for us here, we have a lot of acorns, and this time of year, they're all falling. And you just see the animals are every day they're digging, they're looking, they're constantly eating these acorns off these oak trees. And, you know, this time of year is the best time to find good, healthy animals for sure. The summertime, they can get a little lean.
Okay. So do you ever, I guess, stockpile? I mean, as much as you can, I guess, when you go hunting. I mean, I guess if you catch something, you catch something, but.
Yeah. So I got 3 kids, and you know, when they smell meat cooking, they actually scream meat and run to the kitchen. So we have a freezer that we try to keep full, but it never hits top. We use it a lot. And then also, if we get too much, I'm a believer in sharing. So we'll, you know, there's some local people in the community that will go bring food for,
Cool.
you know, or if we, you know, I have a lot of barbecues where I'll have 20 to 30 people, and we'll cook, you know, that a full hog will feed all of them.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a lot of fun. And every time I have a cookout, I always assume that there's somebody there that has never had wild game. So I take it very serious. I'm like, okay, you know, I want to make sure that everything's cooked properly.
So is it a different cooking process?
Fully.
Really?
You know, yeah, because wild game, they're like track stars. These hogs and these deer, they're non-stop moving. So there's not like you know, the wild hog is nothing like a domestic hog. Domestic hog is restricted as far as how much it can move, so it can build belly fat, so they'll have bacon and so on and so forth, and lots of fat on it. So these wild boars they're running nonstop. If they're on their hoof, they're running. You know, so they're very lean, and in that, there's no room for mistake as far as cooking goes, because in the beginning I would overcook it and it would dry out. So you just want to watch the temperature constantly once it gets around over 125, because people are very scared of diseases in wild game.
Yeah.
Like one of these things that just like everyone's like, oh, is it cooked well enough? One thing that I've learned in that is I do believe that, but the thing is that it's an extreme, and I try to stay away from extremes. And I go, okay, what I don't want anyone to get sick. And after 145 degrees, everything pretty much dies, right?
Right.
So I take it out at right before 150, out of a smoker, is normally how I cook them, or in the oven. And then I wrap it in aluminum foil. Before I do that, I'll put a little butter in there, wrap it up, wrap it in a towel, and I'll set it in a cooler. And I let it relax for about 40 minutes inside of a cooler with no ice, just the insulation of the cooler and the towel. And then you take it out, and it just cooks the inside out. It's bursting with flavor. And that's kind of one of the tricks that I use.
Very nice.
But I also brine everything as well.
Okay.
In a basic brine. It's just, some like a cup of salt and a few cups apple cider vinegar. And then I fill that with water and ice, and I let it sit in that for about 3 days, and that'll pull any like kind of blood that we don't want in there out. So,
okay. Wow. You got like a process to it. Doug wants to start going hunting, especially now that we're here in Texas. One of his friends that he knows has land out here. So he said it's so easy. Like you can just shoot a deer off like the front, of the front porch. It's not hard. It's not, really hard to do it. So he wants to do it. But then I was thinking, I'm like, I don't even know how to cook it. There definitely is a difference. I can tell, like with grain-fed beef and grass-fed. Grass-fed's usually always tougher, again, because they're moving around the pasture. So I kind of get that, but it seems like wild game might be like a step up, like a notch up above that. So that's really cool.
I can't wait to cook it for you guys one day, because it's some of the best meat you'll ever try.
Oh my God, that's so exciting.
And that's the good thing about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Cause everyone kind of gets sick of the normal chicken, beef, turkey, what you can get in store and stuff. So
yeah. And just one other thing, for me, I'm trying to expand my family's menu, so it's not the same thing over and over again. So
right.
I just picked up duck hunting again, and in the past, duck I can never get the taste right. So I was like, I don't want to go shooting a bunch of shooting ducks. I'm just going to say it's a lot of fun. They're constantly coming in. If you like shooting, it's just, it's so fun. But your friends are there. You're laughing. You're making fun of each other when you miss. It's great. It's like so much fun. So my problem is it's fun, but if it doesn't match the way it tastes. And so that's this last week. I just went on a road trip out to Missouri and Tennessee with my buddy Chris Herrera. We went out there and we shot a bunch of mallards. So okay, here we go. We're going to try it. I was very skeptical. He cooked it, and I watched him, and he cooked it like it was ahi tuna. Like he seared it for 2 minutes on one side, flipped it for a minute and a half on the other, and then let it rest for 2 minutes. And I was like, was that cooked enough? He goes, oh yeah, plenty. And he sliced it, and it was medium rare. And
really,
I've always cooked it well, and it always tasted like a liver taste, or people that love liver get mad at me when I say that, but it's just what it did.
Most people don't like it.
Yeah, but it just
be honest.
So yeah, so this was like, it tastes like filet mignon, like from what I remember it tasting like. It was unbelievably just delicate, beautiful flavored meat. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, my goodness, these ducks are in trouble right now, because it was so good. I was like, I can't wait to go back again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's like now and Megan, my wife, she's, full test. I gave it to her last night. She's like, wow, this is very good. Because I had cooked it in the past, and I just totally botched it. I cooked it way too much. It brings out a very strong flavor. So yeah, so our menu is expanding.
That's so interesting, because I would think like chicken, it can't be pink or anything. It has to be like fully cooked and stuff. Is that the color of? I've never had duck, so I don't know.
It's like a darker red inside.
Oh, okay.
Not like a pink, because you have to remember, chickens. They're a whole nother ball game. A couple things that just kind of through research that I found out about them is like, the way that they're raised now, they're forced to have more fat to get bigger, but their protein has dropped, a third in the last 30 to 40 years.
Right.
So people think that they're getting a bigger breast and they're getting more protein, but you're actually not, you know.
Right.
So, you know, but the thing is that they don't get a chance to do anything other than stay still and, you know, peck around like wherever they can reach. But these birds are nonstop flying. I mean, we're talking Saskatchewan up in Canada, flying all the way down to Louisiana. I mean, that's an incredible amount of flapping. So their muscle is just pure muscle. And that's why you don't want to overcook it, because there's no leeway when there's no fat on it. It's a very thin layer, but it's not even like fat that you want on, you just take it off.
Right, right.
So it's a totally different meat outside of looking like chicken.
So interesting. And then can you tell us more about those emotional connections of when you kill something and when you eat it? I know it kind of freaks people out, like you said, like even just the process of thinking about an animal being killed and then ate. So what is that emotional connection?
Yeah, I mean, especially for me when I'm bow hunting, you have to be in close quarters from the animal. Most of the shots that I take are somewhere between 15 and 35 yards. So that's relatively close. And, you know, you're analyzing the animal the whole time it's coming. And for me, I get what a lot of people call buck fever more than anyone I know. And I've been hunting for a long time. Every time any type of deer walks out, my adrenaline spikes. So I have to like try to calm myself down, you know, and then you have this connection with this animal where you're watching its eyes. If the wind blows, you know, you want to move with the tree. You know, you don't want to stay still, because they'll pick up something that stays still when the wind's blowing. You know, and when the wind's not blowing, you don't want to move. You know, you have to match your surroundings, and you know, you also have to know which way the wind's blowing, and you always want it blowing in your face. Because if they get there, you're not going to fool a deer or a hog's nose. They'll smell you from 150 yards out.
Right, because I know some people don't even shower like before hunting.
Well, if you do, you know, I would recommend it, but you know, you want to make sure you use some like stuff that takes away your scent, but it doesn't even matter. I mean, I've used all that stuff, and if the wind's blowing on your neck and a deer's in front of you, they're running. They're not going to hang around. You're not going to fool them. But in all that, you know, you have this connection with this animal, and it's hard for me not to feel for it. You know, so if my goal is to harvest it ethically, I have to try to calm myself. And focus on my shot placement, because ultimately what my goal is to get a heart shot, so that I can put my arrow through that so that it can expire as quick as possible.
Right.
And you know, we all make mistakes. It happens. And that hurts me the most. But that's never the goal. So if the goal is to harvest something ethically, there's a whole bunch of things that go surround that. There's practice, there's, you know, being healthy yourself, working out, staying in shape, you know, all that stuff matters for the sake of respecting that animal. And so then, you know, I harvest it, and immediately I just show it respect. My way is I just pray for it. You know, I just put my hands on it and I just sit there for a little bit and I just look at it. And, you know, it's probably something that someone from PETA can't understand, but, you know, but it's like, you know, I love this animal so much, you know, it's feeding my family, my kids, my best friends, people I'm reaching out to, the community. So success for it, there's a lot that for me emotionally that's involved with that in that moment. And then, you know, the fun part comes of actually telling my buddies, I got one, you know, we're like, ask them, send pictures. We're like, all right, you know, and then everyone comes over and it's like a fun gathering. My buddies come over and we all butcher it together. Everyone helps and we play music, you know, and just, you know, tell the story. And, you know, my buddy Matt always says, you know, there's a story behind every meal. And that's the truth. You don't get a story from, you don't sit around Thanksgiving table and say, well, yeah, so I walked down the grocery aisle and this big ham was sitting there, and I put it in my cart and then I bought it. For us, it's like, you know, this hog came charging at me and I was, you know, it's like, you know, we always have stories. And the kids love that. They just sit there wide-eyed. You know, so when we give thanks around the table, we fully mean it. You know, it's not an emotional disconnect. It's the complete opposite, you know. But I do understand that people can't go hunting. I totally get that. I have a lot of friends that are manly men, and they just go, look, I am never going hunting with you. And I completely understand that.
Right.
I think that, you know, my goal is to motivate people to just think more about where their food comes from.
Yeah.
You know, if there's, and I would promote them to go to like a local butcher. And the reason I say that is because small mom and pop butcher shops, they're invested in their quality.
Right.
And that's their product. So when you go to a grocery store, there might be good people that work there. I'm not saying there isn't, but there's a lot of hands that encounter that product before it ends up on your family's table. So it's almost like a game of telephone. The more people involved, you know, the more diluted the truth. So, the less hands involved, the butcher, I would almost guarantee it in your local town, would almost directly know the farmer.
Okay.
And you might even be able to go visit the farm. But one thing that happened this past Thanksgiving, a buddy of mine got a farm-raised turkey. And when he was there picking it up, there was people there in line complaining about the size of the turkey because they're so used to getting giant hormone-fed turkeys.
Right.
The farmer's like, hey, these are the way turkeys are. You know, they're not big all the time. You know, and that's nature. You know, there's variety in size.
Yeah, definitely. I always shop. We work with a local grass-fed beef farmer, and same with chicken, the farmers markets. And it is really surprising sometimes, like the whole chickens. I'm like, wow, that's like not the ones you see in the stores that are like super plump and like, oh, I can get 3 meals out of this. I'm like, yeah, I'll get definitely one. But I appreciate what you do and having that connection with animals, because I feel like that just makes everything a little bit better. And I being at the top of the food chain on the land, it is just a part of life, hunting and feeding off animals. But I am so grateful, just like you, we're so grateful for the animals that we eat, that feed us and give us nutrition. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast though this week. Can you share with our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah, you know, it's where we're at now. We're 9 years. This is the 9th year of only eating wild game.
That's awesome.
So, you know, in that, people, you know, joke with me and they're like, hey, like, you're like a vegetarian, but you go hunting for your food. You know, what's that all about? And as a joke, I said, I'm a huntitarian. And it's funny how things stick. And then it also gave me a purpose. So I started a company called Huntitarian a couple of years ago with some of my closest friends. And what we do is we go out and we document what we're doing, and we share recipes, like the whole duck hunting trip. It's on Instagram and on our website. And it's my passion and it's my goal. And I have the hopes of it being my full-time job, actually. Because it's just something that means so much to me. So if anyone wanted to check us out, it's on Instagram, Huntitarian. Instagram's pretty cool. When you go to search and type in HUNTA, Huntitarian pops up, you know. So
cool, yeah.
So Huntitarian is our company. It's a lifestyle brand, and you can check us out on the website as well. Or, you know, personally, my name is just AJ Neste, and I'm on there as well. But I would love to hear from any of your followers and any questions they have. You know, that's my favorite thing is just talking with people, especially people that have opposite views. You know, it's fun to grow with each other, you know, and guide each other throughout this little life.
For sure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate it.